Hello, animation friends, and welcome to another iAnimate podcast. I'm your host, Larry Vasquez, and you're listening to episode 41. In this episode, we have guest Cinzia Angelini. Cinzia has quite an extensive background in animation, having worked both in 2D as well as CG, and now currently a story artist at Illumination, having recently worked on the Minions movie. She's worked on such films as Prince of Egypt, Road to El Dorado, Balto, and such CG ones as Meet the Robinsons, Bolt, Open Season, and Spider-Man 2. She currently has a really cool project. It's called Mila, where she's worked on this with artists, as she mentions on the website, 250 artists, 25 countries, one goal. And so it's a very interesting subject, and so I'm really looking forward to talking with her about this, and so I hope you enjoy. Well, thank you so much for joining us in this podcast. I always like looking for great guests and great projects, or just seeing kind of what's out there. And I came across your project, Mila. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
it is.
great. So then I decided to contact you. I think I saw you at CTN from just kind of a distance. I wanted to hit you up then about a podcast and did not have a chance to. So I searched you out online and gave you a quick email to see if you'd be interested. And so I appreciate your interest in joining us in this podcast.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciated you asking me.
Awesome. Okay, so first of all, I typically like to kind of do a little bit of a flashback and see how you came into the industry. What was some of your training, and did you always get into animation? You know, was there other interest? Our leader here, Jason Ryan, who is a talented animator, but I don't know if many people knew that originally when he was in college, he was looking to be an accountant. So, it seems very odd from animation. Is there something that you seem like you wanted to do originally before animation, or did you always like art?
I always liked to draw, and I always loved, animation and cartoons. Growing up, I'm from Italy, so I grew up in Italy and studied there. I went to actually French school in Milano, so I learned French and Italian at the same time.
Mm.
And after high school, I knew I wanted to get into like an art type of direction and career. And I was thinking advertising, art director, like for, advertising type of thing. So I decided to do a 3-year school that, would prepare me for that. And then just by chance that summer, a friend of my mother, she was doing a directing class in the evening at this school by the Milano in Milano, and she said, "Oh, you love to draw? Why? There is an animation section with us. Those guys are downstairs in the evening, and why don't you just come by and see and apply?" And I figured, okay, at the time to survive as a student, I was painting guitars for the fashion industry. So they would basically use my painted guitars to create, like photo shoots and stuff like that,
Mm.
colorful and different. So I didn't really have any animation per se, like roughs or live drawings, nothing. So I went there with my guitar portfolio, pretty much, my painted guitars portfolio, and I got in. So I decided to do 2 schools at the same time. So I did 3 years of one school for graphic design in the morning during the day, and then the same time 3 years of the animation class in the evening.
Mm.
And then, but by year 1, I knew I wanted to do animation. I just fell in love with it, and I finished both schools. But after, just even not even half a year, I think I was like, oh, I want to I want to become an animator. That's it. That was it. I just fell in love, and we were studying 2D. This was 92, so 1992. So it was 2D, and that's how I started. And after the school, I was pretty lucky to work at the animation studio in Milano called Mixed Film. They were doing all sorts of things like mostly advertising, but also shorts for festivals. And I worked there a year, and then I had a chance to go to Amblimation. I sent my portfolio. If I look back at that portfolio, it's pretty pathetic, but sometimes you need to be lucky, and it was the perfect timing. They were looking for in-betweeners to work at the end of Balto. And I sent the portfolio, and I got in, and that was my first experience into the feature animation world.
Very cool.
And then I never looked back, and then I just continued, to move from studio to studio in Europe. I went to Munich and then Warner Brothers in London, and then I had a chance to meet with Christophe Serron in Annecy. They were looking for animators for Princess of Egypt.
Uh-huh.
And I got in, and
Awesome.
it was pretty crazy because I showed my portfolio in Annecy to him, and the recruiter told me, well, come back tomorrow, we'll let you know. And then the next day, I say, well, if you want, you're gonna, do you want to join DreamWorks? And I say, sure. And 2 months to do the visa, and off I was. So I arrived in the US in '97 with DreamWorks, and yeah, so
So you got
that's
to
how I
work on Prince of
started.
Egypt, huh? That is fantastic.
Yeah, just a few months. So, but it was a great experience. It was so exciting too. I loved it because I came here the previous year to visit some friends, and they showed me the studio, and there was like 5 minutes, I think, reel of the beginning, and the song, Moses' mother song, and it was so emotional to be there. Like, oh my God. So when I got in, I was like, oh, I couldn't believe it. It was just great. Yeah.
Now, this is, you said 97, so this was kind of
Mhm.
now starting some of the transition from 2D to CG, which you
Uh,
also, uh, I know it was shortly after. I mean, you had, I know you worked on a couple other ones at DreamWorks as well, right?
yeah, I worked on the El Dorado. That was completely 2D. At
2D,
least I
right,
was doing just 2D. I was in the with James Baxter team on Tullio, and then I also was with him on for Spirit. So, but
right.
during just before Spirit, that was the summer where Toy Story came out.
Hmm.
And or just previously a little bit before, and then everybody was really thinking about, ooh, we should move into CG. So DreamWorks started like a kind of a training, and for animators, and at the time none of the 2D animators wanted to even think about CG. There was like no, 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 like. But I really enjoyed Toy Story, and I thought, I was really, I really like to explore and learn other things. So I volunteered, um, and um, and I got in. I was one of the four guinea pigs,
Hmm.
basically, and we got a 2 month full time training on Maya,
Mm.
and so that was perfect, and then so I started to do, basically during Spirit I was doing 80% 2D, just drawing, and then 20% of CG, doing like the background horses. They were not doing too much. I think they just did a big huge sequence at the beginning, with all the horses galloping around and moving with a camera. I think it's at the beginning, but most of the film it's a 2D with background CG characters,
Hmm.
soldiers and the background horses. And that was great. That was nice, to get into the CG, but slowly, not with like huge A shots,
You're right.
yeah. And then Sinbad, the next film, was the other way around. I was doing mostly CG with the sirens and the big bird, the rock, was called the rock, and other CG monsters that we had on Sinbad, and then 20% of 2D. And I got to do one sequence where it was both. I did both the 2D and 3D together.
Hmm.
So it was when the big bird is getting the girl up in the sky. So that was fun to just do both
Right.
medium in the same shot. So,
I guess that's kind of why it made my mind kind of go that route, is because you mentioned kind of being in a good position back in Italy, but then also now back here in California at DreamWorks at that transition of 2D and CG where you got that training as well. And so it just seemed like it was a perfect storm, so to speak, a great timing to be at that place.
yeah, it was done. It was perfect, and I was happy I embraced the CG, even if it was kind of going against, the mass. Everybody was like, "Ugh." So, but no, no, it was great. And then I loved it so much that actually I decided to go to a studio where it was just CG. I didn't know at the time if DreamWorks was going to be, going into complete CG or not. Was very. So I got a chance to meet one of the supervisors at Sony ImageWorks, and they offered me to go there and work on one of their film, the special effects film, Spider-Man 2, the one they did, back in 2000, yeah.
Dr.
And then
Octopus, right?
yeah, Dr. Octopus, and then I would work few months on that, and then move on to Open Season. That was the first animation, animated film by Sony. And they were founding SPA, Sony Picture Animation, right at that time. So the idea was to go and join Sony Picture Animation and do animation for Sony. But I got the chance to work on Spider-Man 2, and it was great. It was my first experience working on a special effects film, and working with live action plates and all of that. And it was fun. I had a lot of fun. It was totally different from. Yeah.
How was your
But,
transition from 2D to CG? Did you find it difficult? It sounds like you've got a pretty a good willingness to try things. So I can tell, as you mentioned here, even just to jump to VFX and do some of the stuff in Spider-Man 2 without seeming like that reservation. So did that seem to help you, just having that willingness, or did you find the transition pretty easy?
Yeah, I did. I really enjoyed it, and in some ways, because you have to think differently, but doing animation, but in a different way, it kind of helps you even into the 2D world. To think more three-dimensional, because you start to move the cameras around, and it kind of opens up your brain, and it helps. Like, of course, I think being a 2D animator helps your CG poses a lot, and the silhouettes, and vice versa. Knowing how to do CG kind of opens up your brain a little bit in 2D, where you start to think a bit more in three dimension,
Very
a bit
cool.
more
Yeah.
than before. So I think it's great if animators are exposed to more than one medium. It kind of helps 360.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to ask you next, was how has your 2D background helped your CG? And you mentioned obviously the posing and things of that nature. Do you still take any of your 2D background in your CG as far as prep work?
Yeah, it depends on the shot. Like if I was confident on what I was supposed to do, I would just go CG, probably thumbnail it a little bit, just to figure out the layout of the shot and decide what to do. Otherwise, I would just go straight to CG. Depends. Yeah, really depends on the shot.
Okay.
So. Yeah, I'm not doing every time. Actually, I'm not animating anymore now. I'm just storyboarding.
Okay.
So, so now I'm back to
Back to 2D.
now I'm back to 2D. Of course, it was really, and I think it's drawing for sure. It comes very spontaneous compared to CG, because in CG you take time to do a pose, even if you rough it out. It takes much longer than drawing it. So sometimes it feels like drawing, it's more spontaneous, and you get your first instinct out there right away. And sometimes when you start posing in CG, you spend so much time doing it. I mean, more than just drawing it, of course. Then you kind of lose a little bit the momentum and the initial, sparks that oh yeah, I know, and then it takes so long that it's like, what was I doing? Type of thing.
Right.
So I mean, I think drawing down the idea, it's good, and it can be done in thumbnails, or just drawing it like one drawing after the other, or on the screen, whatever helps people.
Now you said you're storyboarding. Where are you storyboarding at right now? Is it Illumination or?
Yeah, I'm at
Okay.
the Illumination. Yeah.
Okay. How did that transition work for you to get into storyboarding? Obviously, you mentioned you have your 2D background, but what kind of moved you into that position? Just an opening, or is that something you wanted to now kind of start exploring?
No, it was kind of a slow transition. I always wanted, after I left DreamWorks and I went to Sony, and then after 3 years, I got a chance to go to Disney, and so it was altogether 9 years years or almost 10 of CG,
Hmm.
after my 2D time. And it was, so I ended at Disney right when the 2008 big crisis happened, and I was let go after Bolt with half of the production,
Hmm.
the animation department. It was huge layoffs at Disney, like studios do
Right.
once in a while. Every studio goes through that phase, and at the time it was kind of stressful because I was also 6 months pregnant, so it
Oh,
wasn't the
goodness.
best. Yes. uh, but, but looking it back now, I think it was the best because they forced me to do what I really wanted. Not really, but I wanted to do story, and I started already at Disney, going to all the classes and being very interested in the story department. Going bugging all my story artist friends, and I started thinking about my short film there and storyboarding that. So I started there getting into storyboard, and then I was let go, and I was kind of forced. I took a year off, of course, because I did actually a little job just before I had my second kid at Warner Brothers. But then I decided to take a year off because
Mhm.
I had enough, and I wanted to be a mom for a full
That's
year.
yeah, there you go.
Uh, and so I said, well, this is actually a preferred time to start, you know, reading and looking at people's story reels and portfolios online. And I just, uh, pretty much learned from the internet and from books. And after, when I was ready to go back to work, I applied to a few places, and I did 6 months of TV.
Mm.
I went back to 2D for a couple of projects with Ken Duncan at
Oh, very
Duncan
cool.
Studio. He did, yeah, it was great. I was terrified because, Ken is an amazing animator, and I didn't touch pretty much a pencil. I mean, yes, but not to animate for 10 years. And then they called me and said, "Oh, we have this DVD, special DVD for How to Train Your Dragon, and you want to come by and join." Then you I was freelancing and storyboarding. I say, "Oh my god, really? Okay, yeah, sure." So the first, no, Ken was super nice because the first 2 weeks was so difficult to go back. You have no idea,
You had to
but
shake off all that rust.
yeah, yeah, it was very tough. But yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of
Wow,
fun.
you've got to work with Christoph Saran, Ken Duncan, James Baxter. This is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's I had a lot of fun, and the supervisor was Sandro Cleuso. He's an
Oh, yeah,
amazing
yeah.
2D animator. Yeah, he's from Brazil, and that was really fun. And then they called me back for the Kung Fu Panda DVD special, so
Mhm.
that I did another one. And then I worked a third time for Ken, doing the Minion ride, the Universal Mayhem Despicable Me ride with the Minions. So then I went back to CG animation for that, and that's where I kind of bumped into Illumination, and the rest is history. And I basically sent my portfolio, went to talk with them, and it was my first feature experience in storyboarding. They gave me a chance. That were really nice, and I started with them. I then had a couple of years where I went back to DreamWorks as a story artist, but then I went back to Illumination, and I'm there now.
Now, what is the difference between a story artist and a storyboarder? Is a story artist
Uh,
someone who does the storyboards, or is there a difference
yeah,
there?
yeah, yeah. No, no, it's just they call it either way.
Okay,
It's yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
gotcha.
it's just and it depends. You can just storyboard, or it depends on the project. Maybe some story artists help write some pages if there is, like, or ideas, or like, what would you do? Or sometimes it happens. It happened that dreamers were they had an idea, they pitch it, and then they kind of let you come up with something.
Okay, that was my
It's
next
fun.
question then. Okay, how much do you get to be involved with the story, or because obviously as it goes to Mila, this is your story, and now you're kind of helping you. assuming you've been in many of the story
Oh yeah.
development and things of that nature. So this was
Mhm.
very familiar territory with you, at least for the training for your own.
Oh yeah, it's I mean it's a great training, and it depends on the production, on the directors, producers. Some directors like to just give you a page and that's it, and you should stick to that as much as possible, unless they're very specific and tell you, oh no, just try something else. And some directors are more open to suggestions, and they would just listen and discuss there on the page and change on the fly the script. So it really it's very it's really depends on who you're working with.
Mhm.
So the most important thing is like to know how to read and understand the people you're working with. So if they like something, you're better off doing what they like, like if somebody wants to stick to the script, I would stick to the script,
Okay.
unless they have to. Otherwise, they're gonna be disappointed that oh, I gave her a page that was saying blah blah, and she came out with something else. So yeah,
Got to learn to be able to read people, right?
yeah.
Very cool. Um, let's move into Mila a little bit here. I'm
Mhm.
very curious about this project. Now, is this going to be a short? Is it going to be how long are you aiming for on this here?
It's a short. It's 9 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I started thinking about it, years ago, just before I had my second child, and then I stopped for a while, and then people started to email me like, "Are we going to do Mila or what?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Sure, but I have no money, guys. I have nothing. I have no studio. What? Well, we work for free." Okay, so that's how it started. I mean, because people started, they knew about the project, and they, friends. Uh, Basically wanted to they started on it a little bit, and then everything was stopped in 2010, and then they emailed me and say we really want to do it. So they kind of pushed me to say okay, let's try. And from there, like from a small group of friends, we are now more than 250 from more than 25 countries.
That's amazing.
And yeah.
I noticed a lot of familiar names on the animators list. There was probably about at least half or so from iAnimate. So that
Yeah.
was very, very cool to see. I loved it.
Yeah.
Robbie Rayo,
Yeah.
he was one of my
Yeah.
classmates, and I
Oh
noticed,
god.
yeah, Filippo, I can never pronounce his last name.
Oh, Datola.
Yeah, Datola. There you
Yes,
go.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, just a lot of names on here, and I'll have to put this in our show notes because I can't name everybody. But yeah, about half the list was from iAnimate. So that was very cool to see.
yeah. Filippo is one of the leads.
That's
So
fantastic. Yeah, he's one of our
yeah,
alumni. Robbie's one of our alumni. Now, I noticed they are also from, or at least Robbie from a Italian background as well.
yeah, uh-huh.
Was that some of the commonality that they knew of the story, or how did you recruit? You know, you mentioned some of these people knew of the story and said, "Hey, let's get this going here." You mentioned over 250 artists here. How was
Yeah.
this built up?
Well, it started with friends here, like I said, and then basically friends of friends. And then I did a class at the Art Institute where I would, I had students that we would meet once a week. And we were just building everything, props and all of that stuff. So there I met more people, and some of them are still on board. This was 2010, 2011.
Hmm.
And then word of mouth, pretty much. Friends of friends knowing about the project and chiming in and spreading the word. And then the media started to pick it up and write articles. I then applied for a grant. This is the film is based in Trento, in Italy, northern Italy, where my family is from,
Hmm.
and it's set in during World War II.
Right, right.
So I around 2011, I've heard of the Trentino Film Commission, and I went there and I pitched the project, and I got a grant
So you went
from
back to
them
Italy to do it? The
to just pitch the project. One summer I was there, and I met with them,
That's
and
fantastic.
yeah, and I pitched it, and I tried it, and there, the media would, it's kind of rare that for a city like Trento is not huge. There is like an animated project, in CG being
Right.
done. It's kind of so media started to pick it up, the story locally there.
Particularly with someone with your background who's worked at a lot of the major studios. So I can imagine that brought some extra clout with it.
Exactly. Yeah. And then one of my friends that did the animation school with me in Italy, Valerios, is also the owner of a Pixel Cartoon in Trento. Um, Came on board and is still with us, and is one of the main. I mean, he's the only animation studio involved that is doing production work. Came on board and they picked the story and spoke about him, of course. And so from there, basically just word of mouth. And now, with all the articles that came out
Right,
during the
right.
years, festivals, and actually, it's really overwhelming because even now, this year, isn't the film is supposed to be. We're trying to finish it by end of 2016.
Hmm.
But the festival already hearing about it, so they've been inviting me to go and talk about the how we're doing it, the work in progress of Mila, the behind the scenes, because of course, I mean, it's not really common to do a film like this at this level, at this quality, basically with no money. I mean, we have the grant from the Trentino Film Commission, the Fondazione Cassa Rurale is another bank that chimed in from Trento. Um, but if you think, I mean, how much these films at this
Right.
level cost
Yeah.
is really a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the cost. So yeah, so that's how we're doing it.
Well, I mean, obviously, people can get an idea for the story by checking out the website, but I want to hear from you. Can you, for our listeners, maybe we're hearing this for the first time and hearing about Mila, can you give us kind of without giving any, too much away, what is Mila?
So Mila is a story of a little girl, Mila, and she is an orphan of World War II, and the story is inspired by true stories that my mom told me growing up, and especially a story that she was telling me of her experience as a little girl during the bombings of World War II, and she was Mila's age,
Mm.
so it's inspired by her. And she would basically, when the sirens went off and the bombers would start to arrive, everybody, the chaos would start and everybody was running and screaming, and you can imagine. And if she was out playing the garden in the garden, or walking in the street with her mom or whatever, she would just freeze and do nothing, just freeze and be totally, into panic until, like someone, mom, dad, or the neighbors would pick her up and go to the shelter. So that particular story always made me think, even as a teenager growing up, and what's going on in a kid's head.
Hmm.
What is he feeling, and that's sad that we see that every day on the news, unfortunately, more and more. You growing up, you expect, for some reason, war to go away, and this craziness of to stop, but it seems like it's getting worse and worse. So this has always been something that I wanted to tell, to with the medium I love, and that's animation. And I don't think animation should be constrained to just tell stories, commercial stories about funny characters, and that's great. That's super, because it's great to bring laughter
Right.
to the kids and to the adults, and that's awesome. But I think it's such an amazing medium that
Hmm.
you can use it for anything. If you have a story that needs to be told and deserves to be told, you can tell any stories with
Hmm.
animation.
Yeah, and I love on the website here, which is milafilm.com. I'm going to quote here. It says, "I wanted to tell a war story, not centered on armies, soldiers, generals, battle plans. I wanted to tell it about civilians and especially the children." And so, yeah, that's a great concept for a story. And I love the design of Mila and that you guys have come up with. And so, yeah, I think animation is a perfect medium to be able to tell something like this in a very powerful way.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, for sure. So now some of the concepts of Mila here, the design, is this something that you had come up with or some people on your team?
The design of the characters are from Grane, is pretty well-known character designer, and I've known Luis since the DreamWorks times. We were animators together, and then he moved into character designing. There was he did Ratatouille and Astro Boy and many others, films. Is amazing. I love his design. He's such a particular um, um, style that he has, and anything that he does, I just love. So when it's amazing. So when when I started to think about the project, I asked him. I said, I love your designs, so that I really would like you to help me out and draw Mila, and he accepted gladly. I remember he brought me this was years ago, like a few sketches, and then I said, I don't know, and then he brought me the Mila sketch, that the black and
Hmm.
white sketch that you can see. I think it's on the website as well, and I said, that's Mila. You just know, you just say that, that's Mila. And then Philippe Brochu is a modeler at DreamWorks, and he was with me at Disney at the time. Once we left, he did the model for Mila, and
Have you found, you mentioned that this has been a lot of voluntary time and energy. A lot
mhm,
of these other people, they have, and obviously it's a neat resource for some of, as we mentioned, some of the students here, our past students here. They obviously have the ability to add to their portfolio and show some great work. But have you found that this story particularly has resonated with people to want to be a part of? Like you mentioned, these guys here.
yeah, I think artists are sensitive beasts, right? We are very sensitive human beings, and most everybody is probably working in animated feature animated films that are great, but when an artist come across a story like that, where like you have another huge group of artists that are working on that, um, because we all have the one goal to see Mila's story told, and share a little bit of what goes through a kid's life when it's under in the middle of conflicts. I think something special happens, and I you don't believe the emails sometimes that I read, from people. It's like, oh, my grandmother was, in the middle of these particular moments,
Hmm.
during World War II. And, a guy emailed me that his grandmother was uh, Germany during the era, at the end when Berlin fell under the Russians. And you can imagine what those days were,
Yeah, yeah.
especially for women. Anyway, so it's amazing, and I think some people are just attracted by the story,
Yeah, yeah.
and they just want to, they're just diving in like head on, like, oh, I just want to help. What can I do?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, and then there is another part of people that are attracted by the the level of the talents
Right.
that we have, like especially as leader in the leadership positions. It's if you look at the credits, these are all people that have like 10, 20 years experience
Yeah.
in the CG. I mean, in the animation world, mostly over here. I mean, in Europe as well, but people that really worked with big productions. So like, I have people from India or Iran or Egypt, that don't have that chance. They're super talented people, but they don't have the chance
Hmm.
to interact at this level of animation, so they're attracted by that.
That's very
And then
cool.
and then I think there is the third group of people that are like students that or people that just started, that maybe have a year experience, stuff like that, that don't have a portfolio. And what we give that usually studios don't allow is like, we allow people to use what they produce before the film is released, as
Mm.
long as it's password protected, so basically, someone that doesn't have a animation reel and wants an animation reel comes on board, and he or she works hard. In few months, they can have few shots,
Yeah.
and then off they go and have a reel that it's a production. It's not that just having student reels is
Right.
great, but that it's always good. And plus, if you have like a real production, shots
Right.
in there, you know how it is. So that's, I think those are the three groups of people that are really attracted by the project.
Now, I notice you're directing that. How much of this are you having to manage all of that?
Well, thank God I have an amazing producer that is Andrea M, and she has been with me since 2010. And her and her production team are doing most of that. Of course, I'm helping a lot, because we all have our day job. So whoever is available to do something, I'm managing the whole animation department, of
Okay.
course, and I was following visual development and story, and she's more managing lighting and layout. So we just divided up the what we needed to do, but it's not easy. But after all these years, we know how to move around 250 people. We got pretty good at
That's
that.
fantastic. Yeah, I was just kind of wondering though too, because as you mentioned, you have your day job, you're married, you have two kids, and so trying to fit this in, that's got to be pretty. But it's one
Yeah,
of those things that it's a passion of yours.
yeah.
It's I can imagine it's busy and crazy at times, but it's where it's not a burden though, because it's something that you are passionate about and enjoy. So, um,
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, without passion, I don't think I could do this, because sometimes it's really, really demanding. I mean, I work all the time. I don't have at the moment, especially during this last year of production. I don't have time for myself. So really, yeah. So it's just all either Illumination or Mila or family, and there is nothing else. So yeah.
now, you mentioned this is based on what your mom has told you.
Mhm.
Is she still alive?
Yep,
Okay, so
she's here in
so what did she
in
think when you approached her about this?
oh, she was she comes from a generation where uh, it's odd to do something about them. They always I think they had less of an ego that the generation of today. No, she was like,
That's
oh.
posting plenty of pictures about themselves on the internet and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a different, really. Anyway, um, really a lot of respect for all those generations. They went
Absolutely.
through crazy times and they didn't have all the things that we were really spoiled, at least in this side of the world at the
Yeah.
moment. I think we should appreciate every day. Um, but no, she's really happy that I'm doing it. Um, there is also a little on our YouTube channel. There is a little interview to her. It's just a minute.
Okay.
So
I'll have to plug that. Yeah.
yeah. So she's happy that we're talking about the kids and how they feel.
Hmm.
That she still, when, for example, there is like the 4th of July. That you have the old bombers going over
Uh-huh.
just for show.
Hmm.
She still freaks out when
Makes
she
her
hears
yeah.
those old engines going by.
Mm.
It's something that that really touches you, and it doesn't go away. It
Yeah.
stays there. Some people are more affected than others depending on the age and the. At least she had the chance that after the first big bombings, they escaped, and that's how Mila ends. And they went as refugees up in the mountains, just escaping from the city and where the big bombings were happening. So I think she's fine because she was exposed not too much to that craziness.
Hmm.
uh, but still, it's imagine, I can't even imagine the kids that are going, like in Syria, for example, now going through like years of
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Everyone is bombing from everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
How can you? I mean, I don't know how they survive mentally. That it's just insane.
And I think that's why your story, I think, just resonates. It doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you fall on in regards to war. It goes back to kind of that old adage, war is hell. I think you're taking it from a very good perspective. And it's just, I think that's why it probably is resonating.
Yeah, it's just from the point of view of the kid. There is no politics. We don't even see soldiers. The only element that represents war is the bomber. And I didn't want to pick like one particular bomber. I mean, if you look at the history, we know very well, who was bombing in Italy, because unfortunately Italy was with the Germans at some point. But we just picked a few bombers. We did a mix, and we created our own bomber that doesn't represent any country.
Hmm.
It's just a generic bomber. The only thing, I called it 91. If you see the bomber, when you see Mila, there is a 91, because that particular day, 91 bombers bombed the city. So
Mm-hmm.
um but yeah, it's just we don't see dead people with, it's just you don't have to show blood to create the panic and the anxiety that a kid goes through. Just the sounds and explosions and the bombers and the shadows and the running. That's plenty. We
Hmm.
we got we have a couple of sequences that are really strong, because I really wanted. We start with a dream, and then we go right into hell.
Uh,
and and I really wanted, that to be really really strong, to make the audience feel what you go through. You know.
would this be too much for children to watch just because of the content and the seriousness of it? Or is there, because you mentioned there's not going to be soldiers, not going to be blood. Does it lend itself to that audience as well?
I think all the kids, can watch it. I had kids, because I did a presentation with Azifa in October, the behind the scenes, that we bringing around to festival. Um, and we had also, probably around 30 kids came by,
Hmm.
friends of my kids, and they were really into it. And but they saw the, part of it and the story real, so
Hmm.
not the real thing, with all the effects and everything. um but they were really fascinated. They
Mm.
were just asking about Mila. Is she gonna be okay? So she's gonna. I don't want to. It's Mila ends in a positive way. That's all about basically showing how strong kids are, and how good they are to survive. Uh, Mila will survive, because she knows how to play, and with the, by playing, she will basically overcome this tragedy.
Mm.
Um, so no, I think it's fine, for the kids. It's not. I mean, if there is a kid that is particularly sensitive, then
Right.
probably the explosion will
I
not be
should know
good.
kind of
But
where you were aiming at, I guess, target audience per se. So I was just kind of more curious about that.
yeah, yeah, no, possibly, adults and kids, but
Gotcha.
yeah.
Now, I noticed on the website with some looking at some of the stuff. Where did you guys come up with some of the reference? I mean, obviously you mentioned you're from Italy, but this is obviously also back in 1940s here. So, where did you get a lot of your reference for some of this, the scenery and the look and things of that nature? Was it a lot online? Did you guys have books?
I had books from when I went back to Trento. I went to the library. I took a lot of pictures myself, and I took a big panoramic of because the first sequence starts. The first and the second are set into the main plaza in Trento, and so I went there and took big panoramic of the north side and the south side, and it's like 22 buildings all together. There is the old cathedral, and very old town.
Hmm.
And it's actually really beautiful, Trento. And um, and when I went back, and then I came back and I started to assign letters to each of the building, right? And then a couple of years later, I went back and I went to the same plaza. I I swear, I walked into the plaza and I was seeing letters above. But visually, oh, that's building A, B, C. It was crazy. Anyway, no, but I spent the first couple of years doing so much research, with books, but then online, thank God we have the internet. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I don't know what they were doing before. And a lot of very old pictures.
Your mom
For
have any at all?
she not the she had of the people of the family, so that
Hmm.
helps with the clothes. But for the Trento, the streets and the because I had a particular the path that Mila is going through to go from the main plaza to a house where she's gonna be during another sequence. And so I had to research a lot those streets and the buildings, and we recreated pretty much the whole section of Trento where she the film is gonna be. Um, we have like around 35 buildings or something like that, and we didn't want to do like a architectural representation of Trento, but our interpretation, of course, so kind of a cartoony and wonkyfying, the
Uh-huh.
and pushing proportions and that, and the other actors are Alexandra Kavalova and Richard Smythman, and they both, took at times, um, on the task of designing and uh, the environment based on the references or the clothes, and some of that is still going on with a couple of the characters, but we have more than 200 assets, and even the props. We looked at references, the cuckoo clock and the radio and everything from the 40s, everything.
That's
So that
awesome.
was that was really interesting. Yeah,
Very
really
cool.
great, very great to see to do it. Yeah.
Um, Pipeline. I'm assuming Maya for animation, but is it been for modeling or texturing? Has it been kind of, hey, whatever the artist uses and can import export it out as an OBJ, or how is that working for you guys?
Yeah, some guys for modeling did used Max, but I think most used Maya. And then for texturing, it was the Photoshop, of course, and Mari
Okay.
for the characters. But basically, we are not a studio that can have licenses, so it was all about anybody that would want to come on board had to provide their own license and do their work. So um, and then we actually the texture and look development supervisor Cesar Montero one day just said, hey, there is this great tool called Arnold for lighting,
Hmm.
and I think we should contact those guys because it'd be awesome. And I said, okay. So he just emailed those guys out of the blue, and they were amazing. And they say, we love it. We're gonna give you 30 licenses. So we we have yeah, Solid Angle. It's on board, and they gave
Props
us
out to
all.
them then. Props out to them. That's very cool that they're willing to help out on
Yeah,
something like
no,
this.
they've been yeah, no, they've been awesome, and the lighting supervisor is Francesco Giraldini. Is amazing, and he's doing a great job with his team. We finally lighting. CG is so frustrating because when you work in 2D, you have your piece of paper, and then in an hour, if you're good or if you're inspired, you have something that moves, and you can actually shoot and say, hey, I have my 1 minute film or whatever.
Uh-huh.
A few days, a couple of months, you keep it rough, you can do it. CG, you have to build
Yep,
everything
yep.
before you see something. So it took years before we could actually see, a final result. It's worth it, but sometimes like, oh man, it's taking so why does it have to take so long? Yeah.
What's been for you the most enjoyable thing about making this film?
I think interacting with the people, and meeting
Mm.
all these amazing artists. It's still, I'm like, it's great, and some grew with the project because they started a few years back um, as junior students. I've one of the animation leads is Giacomo Mora, and he started as a junior, and he's a lead in giving notes with me to the
That's awesome.
animators, and he's now at Illumination in Paris. And
That's great.
so, these are great satisfaction, and I have many, many stories like that. I'm not gonna go through the whole list, but that's for me, I love to, they've been giving me so much, and I love to that I see I can give back a little bit and help them with their path, and and their destiny and their passion. So that has been amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that.
Okay, my next question then. What's been the most
Mm.
challenging for you?
With Mila or in
With
general?
Mila, yeah, in this
Oh, with Mila.
in making of this film, what's been the most challenging or some of the most challenging stuff? The
Um,
length, how long it takes to do it?
how long it takes to do it? I mean, now it's been since we started production, like seriously.
Hmm.
It's been since 2010, so we are in our starting our 6th year. And when I started, I probably would have never imagined to take 6 years to get where we are. Um, but it's fine. I mean, I sometimes it's frustrating. So the because we have no budget, and unfortunately, I have to say that even if it's an amazing, I think, and many people recognize that thing that we are doing, and the theme that I decided to to explore with the film. Not many people are willing to help financially, like or studios, that's very challenging for shorts in general. That I don't. It's something that really always surprises me, because I think shorts are amazing to talk about stories in a
Hmm.
shorter amount of time with short, a smaller crew, so less financial
Risk there, yeah.
risk, and it's an amazing tool to work with people that want to grow and want to improve, and to test your team. So if I had a huge studio, I would have like a shorts going on 24/7, seriously, because these the shorts are really giving so much to the artists. We are so passionate about telling stories. We don't have the chance to tell feature stories. Sometimes stories don't need a feature. A story is fine if it's 10 minutes.
Hmm.
And it's great. And I think it gives back so much to the artists that if big studios would do that more, they would have a much happier crew,
Yeah.
for sure. They would work twice, and they would run to the if I was at the studio, and they tell me, okay, 6 hours you work on the feature, 2 on the short, you will see so many smiles. It's just the way we are. It's true. It's true. But studios and head of studios and producers, I mean, their business is to make money, and shorts are not. they're not
Profitable there.
bringing you. Yeah, they're not bringing you revenues. So that's the issue until someone will figure out. I think now, with all the tools that we have available online, and
iTunes,
yeah,
Netflix, Amazon.
Exactly. Things are gonna change more and more.
I
It's
would
gonna
love to
be
see that.
easier. But until you have someone that enough power in town to say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna do a series just about shorts, or whatever. It's gonna happen. It's just frustrating that it takes so long for big corporations to figure out that it doesn't have to be just about features.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the audience is is ready for different stuff. They're like so ready. They're like, I think we underestimate the power of the audience.
Yeah.
And what they can watch.
Yeah. And that's a great point. I mean, obviously, as a business, you got to be able to make money to keep your doors open. But as you're kind of mentioning that, it does seem like it's a bit harder to turn some of those ships, or to take the risk for the audience sake to really kind of stand out, I guess. So I think that's the neat part. Like we mentioned, some of these other mediums to be able to really start allowing artists like yourself or others who have these stories that would be able to produce these things in those environments would be really, really cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Actually, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great way to end off.
Okay.
I'm looking at my questions. I got my questions answered. I'm looking at our time. I think that's a really good time to end off here. So we're looking at a ETA for it being out in late 2016. You mentioned late this year. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna keep up to date with you. I'm gonna make sure you holler at me for any social media to kind of help get the word out. But sounds like a really real cool project. Are you still looking for artists for help? Is that something that we can mention in our show here?
Yeah. Well, yeah. We're looking for character effects, so hair and cloth simulation.
Okay.
And effects, bombing, all the effects for World War II. We have a couple of guys, but we need more help with that. And then cloth and hair. Of course, I'm always looking for animators, but we have so many animators that are junior, medium level. We need to find some good senior animators.
All right.
I mean, I have a bunch, but it'd be good.
Yeah, I understand. Obviously, when they've got a full-time gig, time is always difficult to get. So yeah, if you can get more out there, that's why I wanted to mention it out there. So if you're listening and you know other people that can do these positions, definitely contact you. I'm assuming again at milafilm.com.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, Cinzia.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I really, really appreciate your time. This sounds like an awesome project, and I can't wait for it to be released. So thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much, iAnimate. You're awesome.
Very cool. Thank you. Take care.
Ciao.